Hello everyone, it's Amanda getting ready to get started with Xero for Pro Advisors. I'm going to do something different today and I'm going to turn on my camera because I feel like um, sometimes these webinar sessions get a little boring when you're just listening to someone's voice. So we're going to try this and see how it works. I have not done this before on GoToWebinar, so hopefully it's not annoying on your end. Hopefully you can still see the screen pretty well. So good morning, everyone. Let's get started with Xero for Pro Advisors. Okay, so what is Elephant and who am I? I'm Amanda Aguillard. I know some of you online. It's nice to see some friendly faces. I became a CPA about 20 years ago, so I've been around for a while, but I started my own accounting practice in 2012 when I went back to work after being off with small children for a while, went back to work and really wanted to have a practice that I could run from anywhere in the world. And I say that kind of cavalierly because, you know, I'm a mom to two kids. I'm not traveling around the world a lot, but I do travel to glamorous places like Jackson, Mississippi and Pensacola, Florida for travel sports. So it's kind of the same thing. I wanted to make sure that that I was around for my children. So I started an accounting practice in New Orleans. That was a virtual practice, and that has done okay so far. And along the way, I found Xero and loved Xero. I think most of you guys know that we have a Xero exclusive practice here. I worked for them for a while, doing some talking and some campaigning on their behalf, but I don't do that anymore. So I'm coming to you today, just not biased and not paid. This is not sponsored. It's just from my experience using Xero. So in that world, I was able to teach the Xero certification course. And that led us to build and launch Elephant. So Elephant is a training company for accountants and bookkeepers. We really focus on technology. And in fact, if you saw our little primer slide that starts the webinars in the beginning, that's our mission is to help accountants and bookkeepers leverage technology to build the practices of their dreams. So we focus on technology and practice management. I don't want to say, you know, they say never, but I think we will probably never do tax, CPE or audit regulations. It's just not the space we're in. We really focus on, again, on technology and practice management. We did start out teaching a lot of Xero stuff, and we certainly still do that, but we are grateful that we have folks in the QBO space that are willing to do some QBO training for us. So we've added a lot of that this year, and I'll give you a quick lowdown at the end of what's coming down the pike. And let's get started. So I will try to speak to Xero very broadly, but for those of you who are experts, feel free to call me out on anything that I don't explain well. Okay, so the idea of this webinar came from, let's get back one. The idea for this webinar came from a lot of the chatter that I was seeing on social media. And it came from two places, right? It came from two events. One that Intuit announced QuickBooks Live as, you know, their bookkeeping arm, services arm, which is interesting. I'm not sure where they're going to land on that. If it's going to be, you know, if it's going to be an Uberization where they're just the third party sort of matchmaker, or if I know they have hired people as employees to do bookkeeping work. So that happened, and I think that caught everybody off guard. I certainly didn't see it coming. And so that was kind of one thing that people were like, what? I don't know how I feel about that. If you're a pro advisor and you've built your entire practice on QBO. And then the other thing was the limits they started putting on subscriptions that were kicking folks over into higher and much more expensive. I think it's QBO Advanced. So those two things I kept seeing on social media over the last month or so, and people were saying, well, you know, it's really going to affect my practice. Maybe I should look at something else like Xero. So I thought we would just do this. I do want to say very clearly, this is not sponsored. This is not even endorsed by Xero. This is just me talking about, how I use it and some differences that I know of. And this is not to slam QBO. I mean, that market is that's 80% of the small business accounting market in the US. So it's obviously an important platform and a platform that works for a lot of people. So just wanted to make sure that I'm clear about that. This is not a commercial. This is really just trying to educate those of you who are familiar with QBO, but don't, just want to take a peek at Xero. So it's just a survey of some of the key features in Xero, and hopefully lots of time for Q&A. All right, so let's talk about just a brief history of Xero, because I do think it's important. I think, especially in the US, a lot of folks are not very familiar with it. So let's just talk about some key dates in Xero history. So we think about how old QuickBooks is. It's 20 years old. It was launched in 1988. So it definitely has a lot of legacy market in the US for sure. Xero didn't launch until 2006 in New Zealand. So Rod Drury and a few other folks get together and they decide that they're going to build this accounting platform. Rod is an entrepreneur, and so he's frustrated by why he can't get to his company's financials online in a browser. So he says, I'm going to build it. So he gets together with his accountant and some developers, and they build Xero. Within a year, they list it on the New Zealand exchange. It goes public, and the market cap at that point is about $15 million. New Zealand dollars, not quite the same as US, but they list it and does fine, and it takes off. So cleans house in the New Zealand market, cleans house in the Australian market, starts moving into the UK, Southeast Asia, comes to the US around 2011, 2000. I think they opened an office in 11. I think the product was working in 2012. So they come to the US and have a little bit of a struggle. I think everybody would admit that there is a little bit of a struggle gaining ground in the US because Intuit's so prevalent, but they work really hard. And we'll talk in a second, but in 2013, something happens where Intuit decides to go all in. They make an announcement. They're going all in with QBO. They're I don't want to say abandoning desktop. I know that there are people who are tied to desktop, but they make deliberate statements saying their resources are going to go to QBO. And then in 2018, just last year, Xero removed itself from the New Zealand Stock Exchange and put itself on the Australian Stock Exchange to have more access to capital, and now has something around a $4 billion market capitalization. And this is my calculations based on some articles I read. Rod Drury divested himself of a chunk of his stock, and so I just tried to do the math and figure it out that the market cap there is about $4 billion. So 15 million to 4 billion is not bad. But let's talk about what happened in 2013. So I think this was at Sleater. I can't remember if it was Sleater or Scaling New Heights. If somebody remembers, they can put it in the tab for me. But Brad Smith goes on stage and says two things that are really important to, I think, the development of small business online software. He says two things. He says, we are putting all of our eggs in online. So we are going to spend development money in QuickBooks Online, not QuickBooks Desktop. And he says we're opening up the API to developers for free. So my understanding is that, and David Leary is a good friend of mine, so I feel pretty comfortable this is accurate because this was his job. Before 2013, Intuit would charge developers a per user fee for the connections. I think it was about $5. So when we talk about developers, we're talking about all the add-ons. So Bill.com, Gusto, T-Sheets, HubDoc, all the add-ons. They're being charged a connection fee of $5 per user per month. Well, if you have a product that you're trying to sell for, let's say, $20 a month, that's a big chunk of the margin, and there's not incentive, there's not a profit incentive to develop. So in 2013, Brad Smith announces they are removing the developer fee, and then it's off to the races in the US because now developers have a motive to build apps that connect with QuickBooks Online. So, um, so that I think, and I believe that happens because Xero did it first. So Xero always had an open API. They never charged for the connections. And I think QuickBooks realized that that was going to be, as things changed in the next few years, and we've seen it historically the last 5 years. I mean, we were able to build these awesome ecosystems for our clients. If they would have held on to that $5 fee, it would have been really hard to get apps to buy in. So those two things happen, and I really believe it's because Xero comes into the US market. Okay, so part of the frustration I'm hearing from pro advisors with QuickBooks right now is because of pricing, that they're getting kicked into these higher and more expensive subscriptions. So I just wanted to talk about the pricing for Xero. Again, this is not a commercial, this is just information. So Xero has a few different pricing plans. If you are a Xero partner, which is pretty easy to become a Xero partner, you have access to very low cost subscriptions. One is Ledger and one is Cashbook, so these two. So Ledger would be just like right up at the end of the year, where you can't pull in bank feeds, but you can import your statements. If you want a constant bank feed, you can do Cashbook. So Cashbook is maybe something where you're managing your clients on a monthly basis. Ledger is probably just an annual tax write-up kind of deal. So those are $3 and $7 a month. So they're pretty reasonable. And I do have clients on Cashbook. Some of my law firm trust clients are on Cashbook. And then the retail pricing plans are $9, $30, and $60 a month. So the standard would be the $30 a month package, which is unlimited transactions, unlimited bills and invoices. It's pretty much everything you need, except it does not have multi-currency. The projects module or the expenses module, which are kind of separate platforms. Early, a lot of folks get by with this for $9 a month. If you just have, maybe a freelancer, it works. And then established would be with projects and expenses. So I just wanted to talk about that. I looked at the QBO pricing, and it's kind of hard to compare exactly. It seems like actually I have the link up here somewhere. It seems like the sort of standard QBO comparable to Xero would be something at $35 a month. So again, you guys can correct me and let me know if that doesn't seem to be accurate. All right, so let's get on over into Xero. All right, so for the 30% of you guys who have not ever logged into Xero, this is what it looks like when you log in. This is actually a trial company that I was using for training earlier this week. So this is what you log in and see. This is the dashboard. And I'll just tell you kind of how things are laid out. So on this dashboard, there are two different kinds of tiles. On the left would be our bank accounts or credit card accounts. So those tiles each represent a bank account. And then on the right would be invoices. So that's accounts receivable, and bills would be accounts payable. Anything in Xero that is light blue can be clicked on. So these pictures can be clicked on, these buttons can be clicked on. We'll see later on there are sometimes column headings you can click on in blue, but anything in blue is a link. So that's one thing that I have, the little bit of time that I've been in QBO is confusing to me as to what you can click on and what you can't click on. I do like that in Xero, it's pretty clear. Let's go left to right basically. So this is our client name. So in Xero, clients or files are called organizations, orgs. So when you click on the org name, we open up a couple of features, and just a couple things I want to show you here. We do have files. So in Xero, we have each org has a dedicated file box that you can email things into. As long as it's a static file, it'll accept it. So PDFs are preferred. It can accept Word documents and spreadsheets, but you guys probably know that's not the best kind of file to attach to transactions. So PDFs work great, and we can do that here in the file box. And then use files, I'll show you. We can use those files to, let me grab something, to do a side-by-side. And I guess I'd be interested to hear if this exists in, hang on one second. I'd like to know if this exists in QBO. So I'm just grabbing this receipt. So in Xero, we can take one of these files that may have been emailed to this dedicated email address. It may have been uploaded, but we can click on it and add it to a bill, and we'll get a side-by-side view. So sometimes this works for payables queue for clients, where they just send all of their bills in, and we can just use this to create the bill straight from here, side by side. So I'm looking. I have one of my favorite QBO experts on, Kathy Iconis. And so she's giving me some feedback, which is great. So I think it's brand new, is what she's saying, so we're not sure. All right, so that's one feature in Xero that's pretty neat. Also under here, we have our settings. So we have some settings that live here. These are mostly the functional settings of the company, and I'm gonna skip over the rest of this for now. We looked at the dashboard. So Xero changed their navigation the end of last year. So if you'd looked at Xero before probably November of last year, it didn't look like this exactly. Some of these tabs have changed. And one thing they did is they tried to consolidate functions into tabs. So they tried to push, instead of having a lot of tabs at the top, tried to kind of squish them together. And they added this business tab and this accounting tab. And the best way I can think of to keep it straight is like the business tab includes everything we need to run our business to collect and pay money. So it would include accounts receivable, so invoices and sales, payables, expense claims, so expense reimbursements, which we'll talk about. Products and services is inventory and checks. So business is like where your owners or clients are operating, they're collecting money and they're paying money. Accounting is the stuff we do occasionally. So managing bank accounts and bank reconciliation, obviously we do that often, but our clients probably don't on the user side. Pulling out reporting, and then advanced features, which would be like accountant level features and settings. I do want to show that here under reports, and this is a mistake I made as soon as they changed navigation. I was like, where did all the reports go? Because I see reports and there's just 6 or so of them here. These are the favorited reports. So one thing we can do in these menus is if we go into the report screen, we can click or unclick boxes to make reports show up on our favorites. So if I do that and then go back to reports, those starred reports are the ones that show up here. So if you're just putzing around Xero, know that to get to every report you have, it's here in reports, that the truncated menu here is only for favorited and starred reports. We do have contacts where we can manage our contacts from the top screen. We have a plus, so there's a plus quick button here where we can, instead of going into a particular module to do something, we can do some of the most common transactions here from the plus. We can create invoices and bills, journals, and spend, receive, and transfer money transactions. This notifications is really, mostly if a bank feed breaks, it'll tell you here, or if it's been refreshed, it'll tell you here. It's just an activity feed. And then help. So this help menu is dynamic depending on which screen you're in Xero. So it will give you what it thinks are the most common topics from that screen at the top, but you can always go to the help center, which is their resource bank, You can ask your advisor if you're the client, they can ask you here, or we can contact Xero support from this screen. And also, I want to point out over here is your profile. So you can edit your own profile, but this is your gateway to Xero education. So Xero has a pretty good education platform where they do product updates, they do a lot of neat stuff, and that's all included. And the easiest way to get to it is from your profile here. How are we doing so far? Any questions? Let's talk about users. So one feature I know that is a big difference between Xero and QBO is that Xero allows for unlimited users without additional fees. So let's go look at user permissions. We would go to the org name and settings and users. So we can invite as many people as we want in. I just go to invite a user. And as I mentioned before, projects and expenses are kind of like separate modules. So we don't have to include access to that for our users, but business accounting is basic Xero. So business and accounting is Xero. So we would add a user to that, and then there are different versions of access. Invoice only would be for maybe an admin person that you want just to draft invoices for you. And under each one, there are variants too that you can check or uncheck. Standard would be what I'd give a lot of my clients. You know, they don't need to get into journal entries and advanced features, so I might give them standard access. Advisor is everything, right? So that's going to be journal entries, that's going to be bulk coding and recoding. And then read only is really for reports. So if you have investors who you want to allow in to read reports, you can do that too. So again, unlimited users in Xero for the subscription price. Another feature that I know has folks worked up right now has to do with classes or tracking categories, and the idea that QBO has limited those before it kicks you over into a new higher subscription. So in Xero, they're called tracking categories. Tracking categories, the easiest way to explain is that it's really a custom field that you can associate with every transaction or journal entry. So it could be for location, it could be for attorney name, it could be for, I have one nonprofit where we use the tracking categories to allocate by functional expense. So for nonprofits, you've got to determine whether expenses are admin or service, program services or whatever. So we have one tracking category for that, and we have a second tracking category for funding source, so we can link our transactions to grants. So at Elephant, we use sales line, so webinars, downloadable, accounting salon, those are all different sales lines. So tracking category can be whatever you want it to be. You will be able to sort and filter on it. And you can use them, you know, like I said, however you want. So the limits in Xero are this: you get 2 categories, and you get 100 options underneath. So I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I think QBO is starting to kick people over to a subscription when they have more than 40 categories or classes. So in Xero, we can get up to 100 in each category included. There's no option to increase that though. So it's not really a good solution for like job costing, you know, because once you hit 100, you're kind of stuck. So just to be clear, Xero, 2 different categories, 100 options underneath, and that is included in the base subscription. Another thing I know has people worked up right now are the chart of accounts limits. So again, I think it's 250 in QBO before you get kicked over to advanced. In Xero, there is no official limit of chart of account lines, although they did tell me, because I asked them specifically about this before this webinar, they said they recommend capping it at 699 to avoid performance issues, but there is no official cap for chart of accounts lines. One big difference between Xero and QBO is that Xero does not allow sub-accounts. So every account on the general ledger is its own line. There are not sub-accounts, which again, I know some QBO people are like, well, I could never use Xero because of that. But hang on, but you fix it in reporting. So if you want things to be grouped together, you do that in the reporting side. So if you want to have sub-accounts that roll up, well, you just edit the report so that they roll up in the report. So it really does keep things clean to keep every general ledger line having the same value. Okay, here's something I did not know, and it was actually surprising to me as I was researching this. Xero allows you to import invoices. So we can import them via a CSV file. So we use this all the time, and apparently you can't do it in QBO without an add-on. But we can go and bulk import invoices. So a lot of times we do this for conversions. So we have clients that we're converting onto Xero. We take their invoices from a spreadsheet and upload them easily. This is my question about for the poll. This is related to my polling question about POS systems. A lot of times we have clients that are using their operational POS system. We have a lot of law firm clients, so there is only one law firm package that integrates with Xero, and I'm not crazy about it to begin with. But what we can do is let our clients use whatever operational package they want. Every month, export our invoices and then import them into Xero. So it's really not that bad. And I didn't realize that was not really a standard option in QBO. So I love invoice imports. We talk about it a good bit in our classes because it is, like I said, it is a workaround for integration issues. We can also do bulk invoicing in Xero. So we can create one invoice that goes to a bunch of different folks. And we do that by creating a contact group. So if I go over to contacts, this is our fake company is a pool services company, by the way. So we're gonna create a summer startup contact group, and we're gonna grab some clients we're gonna start with me. I'm ready for the pool to be open. We're gonna put these folks into the summer startup group. So I'm just creating a custom group within contacts. And then when I go back over into my invoices screen, I get the option with this pull down is one of them is invoice to this entire group. So I can create a summer startup here. And so what happens is that I will create draft invoices for every one of those folks everyone that's contacts here. So assuming that they're all correct, it sends it to draft to make sure that you definitely want to do this, because you could do this for hundreds of people at once, and I hit approve. So that takes 30 seconds. I can create it's bulk invoicing, it's group invoices in Xero. Invoice reminders, like this is another one. I was like, QuickBooks doesn't have this already? Automatic invoice reminders. Okay, so in Xero, we can set up emails to go out to our clients or our clients' customers when they don't pay their invoices, and we don't have to touch it. So this is awesome. So let's go over to org name and settings and invoice settings and invoice reminders. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is set up invoice reminders. Now, right now it's turned off for this entire company because this box is unchecked. I'm going to turn it on right now for the entire company, and then I would go into specific contacts and turn it off. So it's a global setting to turn on, and then you turn it off by contact, or even you can even get down to the specific invoice level, turn it off. But what I can do is I click on this invoice reminders, turns it on, it lights up, and I can say, I want to email customers when an invoice is, and it gives me the schedule of emails. So I'm gonna click on the first one, and I can say, I want to send an invoice when it is overdue or due in. So I can even send reminders before the invoice is due. So I'm saying I can do it. I'm not doing a thing. I'm setting it up and Xero is doing it for us. So I'm setting up a reminder that says, your invoice is due tomorrow. Don't forget. Would be great if you could take care of it. And this is the email body that you can change. Everything in the brackets would be variables that change. But you would set up this nice email saying, please don't forget to pay us tomorrow. And then you can keep on going, working your way down the calendar and say, okay, well, if it's overdue by 3 days, send them a reminder. Don't forget, if you already paid it, sorry for the inconvenience. We're a small business too. We appreciate your prompt payment. And then you can keep on going. You can get nastier and nastier as you go through the emails and turn them on. So that's neat. I did not know that QBO did not have automatic invoice reminders. So this is a great feature. This is about 2 years old, I think, in Xero. So I love it, love it, love it. Find and Recode. I understand that this is similar to, I think, a reclassified tool in QuickBooks Online. So Find and Recode is where we do a search for transactions that fit certain criteria. It populates, and then we can reclassify, recode those, whichever ones we want. So let's do a search for account janitorial expenses. Let's see everything we've coded to janitorial expenses. Okay, so in real life, I would also always add the condition that the dates are certain, within certain dates, because I wouldn't want to change data from a previous year. But we have all these options for conditions. So we set up whatever conditions we want, do the search. So step 1 is doing the search. And then step 2 would be to do the reclassification. So let's say that I plugged all this Acme stuff was coded to janitorial for the location Mid-City, and I realized that Mid-City didn't open until February, so really these January ones are for a different location. So I'm going to click the transactions that I want to change and go up here to Recode. I can recode to a manual journal, but I'm going to go back and recode them as if they were done correctly. And so here are the options. So I believe in QuickBooks, you can change account and you can change class. In Xero, we can do those as well, but we can also do contact and we can do tax rate. So I believe those are the location, the differences. So here I'm just going to do a find and recode to move those to the Lakeview location, and I'm done. So those are coded as if they were always coded correctly. All right, let's pop over to cache coding. Again, I think there may be a similar feature in in QuickBooks for cache coding. So let's go to this. I'm going to the bank reconciliation function for this checking account. And I go over to the tab called cache coding. And what cache coding does is it takes every unreconciled transaction and blows it out into a spreadsheet. So everything that was on our, what I call a one at a time reconciliation tab, it takes everything that comes in on the left side and puts it into a spreadsheet. So every line here is a bank transaction. And the cool things we can do with that are that we can sort by whatever field our bank data is coming in on. So you guys know banks send data in different fields depending on the bank. So in our case, it's actually sending in payee, which is completely fictitious. That never happens. I'm going to sort by payee, and it will group together my transactions, right? So I can at once select multiple lines. Let's say that these are all bank deposits. These are like credit card clearings, and so I'm going to send it to our credit card clearing account, and I tab over, and it applies that coding to everything that I've highlighted, and I click Save and Reconcile. What's really powerful, and I don't have the data in here to demonstrate, what's really powerful is when we set up bank rules will populate into cache coding. So when I log into Xero in the morning, I can click once, twice to get into cache coding. And then if there were bank rules populated, just click the green button at the bottom for the third click, and I get a lot of things reconciled. And speaking of reconciliation, this is the other thing that drives QBO people crazy is bank reconciliation in Xero. Why don't you raise your hand if that's one of you, if you hate bank rec in Xero, or if you have heard bad things about bank rec in Xero. I know it drives people nuts because it's completely different from what I understand QuickBooks to be. So the easiest way to explain it is if we are doing this what Xero calls bank reconciling or reconciliation. So taking a bank line and matching it to something, or taking a bank line and coding it to something. So here's something that this doesn't actually match, but we're just going to click the OK button. So Xero's looking for a general ledger line that matches the bank line and goes by amount. So Xero's saying, okay, well, here we had, this $100 matches this $100. Yes or no? Does it apply? I'm going to click OK. So Xero calls this reconciling. Those of us who are accountants know that that's not really reconciling, it's coding, right? Coding accounts or lines is different than a reconciliation is matching differences. It's saying, this is where I started, this is where I'm supposed to be. Those differences, scheduling them out as a reconciliation. And I think QuickBooks does it in different steps. For Xero, this coding and clicking the OK button. So like, let's say that this was, just classify this as a sales. Okay, so I'm taking a bank line on the left, I'm creating a general ledger line on the right, and the act of clicking the OK is kind of a reconciliation of those two lines. It's taking the bank line and saying, oh, that does match. So I think it's sort of similar to QuickBooks Online, where you say, okay, this has cleared, click it, but we do it on the front end. So we do it on the front end here. And then at the end of the month, we verify the bank balance, and we do that with a reconciliation report, which is a real reconciliation report because it takes one thing and works its way down to the next. So I would take my checking account, I'd pick the date that the statement closed, and run a reconciliation summary. And so it's showing me this is the general ledger balance, all the pluses and minuses and differences to get to a statement or bank balance. So what we do, instead of going through a separate process for bank rec, like I think you do in QBO, we run this report, and if it's incorrect, then we fix it. So we figure out what the differences are and make those adjustments until we get to a statement balance that does tie to the bank statement. If you have a bank feed, you're gonna get a statement balance that ties 95% of the time, because if all your transactions have come in, they're coded or reconciled on that first tab, it's gonna work. The only time you have a problem is when a bank feed kinks up, right? So I know you guys know sometimes there are little differences where you're missing a transaction, or a transaction comes in backwards or something. So it's a different bank reconciliation process. I think it's faster because most of the time, if you've done the first side, if you've done the tab, this gets to Xero, then most of the time, if you have a bank feed, it's going to work. It will be correct. Kathy's asking, are there tools to help you figure out the differences on the reconciliation statement? So I'll show you the way I do it. It doesn't pull it up side by side, I think, in the way that it does in QBO. But what we do is we run it, and let's say that this bank statement, there is a difference. I would go to the so this is the reconciliation statement. I'd go to the bank statement. So this bank statement is what Xero knows about came in through the bank. So I would take this and compare it to the PDF bank statement that I get from the bank, and just go. You can export this. I have a couple of tricks that make it faster. I export it, I sort it by pluses and minuses. I find out which side. I mean, I like bank recs. I can do them pretty quickly. If there's a problem, find it, and then you make the adjustment. So once you identify if something's missing, you add it. If something's a duplicate, you delete it. If something's the wrong way, you delete it and then add it back. So, but again, it doesn't. If you have a bank feed that's working, it's almost always correct. Okay, reporting. If you haven't looked at Xero reporting in a while, it is definitely better than it used to be. So let's take a peek at a couple of reports. So we're just going to pick a income statement. So I will tell you, note that some of these are tagged with a new tag. Xero overhauled reporting probably 2 years ago, but they have not officially abandoned the old report styles. So if I click more reports, you'll see there's a balance sheet, there's an income statement that don't have a new tag. Those are the old reports, but I work exclusively in the new reports now. So I'm going to pick a new income statement, and it's really pretty. It's nice and looks like a PDF. It looks like it can't be edited, but it can. You have to hover over the body and you get this edit button. And that pulls up the report layout editor. So for those of you who don't like that there are no sub accounts, let me show you what we can do about that. So let's say that we have our income statement and we want to group together our employee expenses. I can add a line. So if I go to rows, group, I can drag and drop. It's not obvious that you can do that, but if you drag and drop, I can rename this employee expenses. And then I just drag and drop the lines that I want to group underneath employee expenses. So in the QBO world, I guess this would be a main account versus sub accounts. So I would drag and drop these in here, wages and salaries. And if I leave the triangle open and run the report, so I click done up at the top to show that it's done, then that triangle, if it's open, it will show the sub accounts or the underlying accounts. If I go back and edit it and close the triangle, it will just show them as if they've been rolled up. So I have employee expenses together. And then another cool thing in report editing is that we can add columns for a lot of different things. Like you can put a formula column. If you want to do a variance, you can put a budget column. You can put, remember that one of our tracking categories in this company was location. So I could do location and then just say, I only want to include the mid-city. And so I'm adding a column that's filtering the income statement for that tracking category. So I've added a column. So pretty cool. I do want to point out Xero expenses because this is something that you can get with the upgraded version of Xero for $60 a month as expense claims. And I actually wrote, I should have found the link, but I wrote a piece about this for Accountex. So if you go to the Accountex blog, you'll see it where I talk about, it's pretty detailed, about the expenses function in Xero. So this is, again, it is part of an upgraded version, but it is in the platform itself. Oh, and then let's do one more thing, report templates, because this is pretty awesome. So report templates would be where if we want to have consistent reporting across our practice, we can set up reports at the practice level that we pull down and use at the client level. So traditionally, the problem with that is that everybody's chart of accounts is different. So you can't say, well, for every client, I want account 1001, which is cash, to be on this line, because everybody's chart of accounts is different. So what Xero did is create report templates. So if I go to reports here, I'm in, by the way, when you see the black banner, I'm in Xero HQ, which is like their practice edition, sort of the main hub. So I'm not in the product, I'm in Xero HQ. But I go to reports and report templates, and if I pick this Schedule C, which is one that Xero gives to you, you can build out your own custom reports. So it's got a disclosure page on it that I can edit. It's got the Schedule C in here, which I can also edit. So let me go into edit. And you'll see that this report is a Schedule C with all the different lines on the tax return. And if I click in and go to edit report codes, I'll show you kind of how this works. And I have a slide that's going to show it a little bit better. But what I would do is select categories or buckets of accounts that go in that line. And the way that they are coded is with these 4-letter, I'm pointing at the screen as if you can see my finger on the screen, is with these 3-letter codes. So ASS is an asset, dot. COR is a current asset, dot. CAS is a cash. So it groups big categories by this code that gets more and more specific. And then in our clients, we take every general ledger account and assign it one of these 3-letter combination codes. Does that make sense? Let me show you the slide I have on this because I think it'll be easier. Okay, so report templates in Xero. We take this client level account, we assign it a standardized code, and then that goes to the report template. So we can create these practice level reports once that we can run across all of our clients. Okay, so let's just talk real quickly about Xero partner benefits. So I'm not that sure what QBO offers its pro advisors, but these are some things that I have found to be super helpful that Xero throws into partners. And there are different partner levels. If you look at the handouts panel, there is a PDF that shows partner benefits, and it shows you the different levels: bronze, silver, gold, and so forth. If you're a silver partner and above, you get the free Xero Practice Manager, which is a workflow tool. It used to be called Workflow Max. They rebranded it as Xero Practice Manager, and you also get Xero work papers. At the bronze level, which is the lowest level, you get marketing money. So that's kind of nice. They give you $2,000 to spend on marketing efforts. So as long as there's some requirements, of course, but as long as it's Xero focused or Xero is mentioned in the marketing campaign, you get access to this marketing money. At certain levels, they'll do data conversion for you. So if you're moving stuff up, it is different. And then, I'm sorry, if you're moving data over from QBO or another platform, they'll help you with that. Subscription discounts are pretty good. They're like, I think bronze, even at the lowest, is 15%. It goes up to 20, 25, and 30 on the market rate. I will tell you though, if you're thinking about using Xero for a client, there are often promo codes. So reach out to somebody and ask for a promo code. I would never set up, this is how you know Xero is not sponsoring this. I would never set up a new client in Xero without a promo code, because there's always one somewhere. And some of them are really good. Sometimes you get 50% off for like a bunch of months. So 13 communities that Xero focuses in, they have Xero hours. So I don't have the list, but it's mostly the big cities. So Xero has sales managers in those cities physically in the cities. So if you have questions or need support, you can really reach out to somebody. They do have in-country support. So when you call from the US, you get generally a US, when I say call, you have to email. You get a US response, so you're not having to go out of the country. It is email only. I know that does bother some people, but this is the second way you'll know that Xero is not sponsoring this, because they probably don't want this public, I guess. But if you email them and say, I have a problem, I need somebody to call me, you can get your email routed to the person who will have an answer. So explain your problem as detailed as you can, so that it can find its way to the right support person, and they will call you. And then Partner Marketing Toolkit, they give you some resources. So any questions, put them up. We're gonna wrap it up. So if you have any questions for me, Maureen asks, do we have an inventory app that we recommend using with Xero? I think Deer is probably the most common. Deer inventory. I think it depends on if you're talking about like manufacturing inventory or just managing inventory, but Deer is one. Okay, so I've got a question. How do we get partner points to get to a partner status? It's by either adding and owning a Xero subscription or being invited into a Xero subscription. And I think you can get partner points by having your there may be other little things too, but the main way to get partner points is by holding or by being invited into a subscription. And the weird thing is, I don't know why, you get more partner points if you're an invited in user than owning the subscription. So you can do, okay, yeah, Trinity's saying you can also get points using expenses in your practice. So that's another way, and projects. Thank you. Okay, hopefully it was worth your time. I certainly appreciate you guys coming. You know, I love talking about cloud accounting and Xero, and if we can be of any help to you in training your staff, we're happy to do that. Please feel free to reach out to us on social media, and take care. Have a great weekend.